Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to this month's Living with Parkinson's Meetup. I'm very happy to be here with our lovely panelists. And I just want to introduce myself real quickly. My name is Chris Kruger, and I am the Program Manager for Educational Content with the Davis Phinney Foundation. And I'm just really glad to be here with y'all. Thanks for joining us. Some of you know this already, but some may not. So I'll just share off the bat that, like our panelists, I'm living with Parkinson's. I was diagnosed in 2020 when I was 37, and I'm just really it's just an honor to be here. So today we're going to talk about shame, and that's a big topic. And as I thought about today's topic, I thought, well, how are we going to get started? And I thought, well, identity is kind of important to shame. It seems like it's related. And so before we get started, I just want to go around the panel and ask each of you to introduce yourselves and maybe say where you're calling from, because I know some of us are in maybe different places than we usually are. And so say where you are, and maybe I was thinking where you were when you were diagnosed. And then finally, since we're talking about shame and identity, I thought maybe it'd be good for me and maybe for everybody to get a sense of who you really are. If you would tell us if you are a dog person or a cat person. So I'll ask everybody to go around and we'll start on my screen. I've got Robin at the top here, so I'll ask Robin to start us off.
Hey everybody, I'm Robin Morades from Charlotte, North Carolina. I got diagnosed in 2015 at the age of 46, but once I understood the full constellation of symptoms, I had been dealing with this since maybe 2003, 2004, since my early 30s. I got diagnosed in Boston, Massachusetts. I was a resident of Boston at the time. And I love my dog Hunter, but I am a cat person.
All right, one on Team Cat. All right. This is gonna be fun when we get to cat. Is Cat a cat person? We'll find out. But let's go with Doug.
Hi, everyone. Doug Reed, zooming in from Lafayette, Colorado. I was diagnosed in 2010 when I was 36 and diagnosed by a neurologist in Boulder, Colorado. I had DBS almost 3 years ago, and I'm doing well. I broke my leg at the end of March, but as of yesterday, I can put weight on my leg. So I'm starting to walk again, slowly but surely.
All right, great. I'm glad to hear that it's the recovery's going well. Kevin.
Yeah, hi everyone. Kevin Kwok here, dialing in from Boulder. I've been living with Parkinson's since 2009 when I was 47 years old, and the other parts of your question were that I was diagnosed very quickly because I was on a business trip to Singapore when I just locked up and froze. And when I came home, they made the immediate diagnosis. Certainly made for a lousy trip. But we'll talk more about that in a minute. Working with Parkinson's. As far as animal preference, I would say very definitely a dog person.
And I forgot to mention, I'm a dog person, not a dog owner, but a dog person.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, let's go to Christy.
Hi, I'm Christy LaMonica. I live in Troy, New York, and I was diagnosed in 2020 in the Albany Movement Disorder Clinic in Albany, New York. And I am a dog person. So I do have 2 dogs and 1 cat. We've always had some of each.
All right. So Sri, let's go to Sri.
Hey guys and girls and they thems. My name is Shri. I was diagnosed in 2015 and I will be 50 in 2 years. So I'll let you all do the math on that. And when I was diagnosed, I was in the same house that I'm currently in. The only difference is from then to now is that I'm in a different room. So that's the difference. And in terms of dogs and cats, I like photos of dogs and photos of cats. And I will enjoy other people's dogs, cats. They creep me out, to be quite frank. They're very curious, very intelligent, and they just jump out of nowhere. And I get very startled. So yeah, cats are, thank you, Kevin. Thank you for that. Thank you. But I love everyone else's dogs and cats. So yeah, that's my story.
I try very hard not to jump on Sri.
Yeah, so
Kat,
let's go to Kat.
you can jump on me anytime, Kat. Anytime.
Well, Kat, why don't you jump in and introduce yourself for us?
Okay, hi, I'm Kat Hill. Let's see, I was diagnosed in 2015 at the age of 48. Let's see, I am very much a dog person. I'm also a Sagittarian. Let me think, what else? My favorite color is purple, and I love polka dots, and I happen to have polka dots on tonight. I was diagnosed in Portland, Oregon, but I am currently in Spain. And I currently live wherever I am. We sold everything we owned, hit the road in an Airstream. And so right now I live in Oviedo, Spain for the next couple of days. So that's me in a heartbeat.
All right, great. And Doug, I'm sorry, not Doug, Brian, I'm looking at you're right next to each other. Brian, please introduce yourself, say hi to everybody.
You're on mute.
Yeah, I think you're muted.
There we go. Got me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, let's see, I was diagnosed in 2008. They said if you were young, I'd say you had Parkinson's, but you're older, I'd say you have Parkinson's, but you're too young. So then in 2010, I was fully diagnosed at the Mayo Clinic in Utah. And I'm a dog person.
Great. So before we have our last panelist, Heather, go ahead and introduce yourself. I just want to remind everybody that we'll make links available and through a post later on. And also, if you have any questions, please throw them in the chat for us, and we'll be monitoring that as we go. So Heather, please let us know who you are and what the what is.
I'm Heather, and I'll let you decide whether I'm a dog or a cat person based on my tattoos. And I do like cats with a K a lot. And I do like the fact that cats don't give a rip. They'll be like, oh, you're hurting? Sorry, I have something to knock off the table and watch it fall. And dogs are just like, I want to please you. Do you have treats? I'm a dog. Do you have treats? You smell like treats. And in fact, I do smell like treats because I eat a lot of snacks in my bed now because I don't get out of bed that much while my back heals. So I do smell like treats. I was diagnosed probably 13 or 14 years ago, I think. But I've had it since my daughter was born. I remember having my first symptoms around 21 years ago. I'm on a lot of medications to sit here and speak with you. I'm so glad to be here. It is good to see you all. I needed to see you today. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing that, Heather, and thanks for being willing to lead us through today's conversation. So if you're all set, I'll hand it over and you can guide us through shame together.
Right. So we're talking about the shame portion, which it's hard to talk about shame without also acknowledging like the fear and the pain management, and the pain itself, and the trauma that comes with this loss and grief that we suffer from things changing so much when, you know, it's not really exactly what we had planned. The one thing that we know is to isolate is to make things a lot worse. So today we wanted to just sort of talk about this sort of aspect of shame that comes with having a disease that affects other people and not being able to necessarily contain that. I personally can just say I have a lot of shame around the fact that I can't mother the way that I want. My mother was recently visiting and she actually made me feel better because she didn't know what to do when I had me. So I wanted to kick that off by saying, everyone here, we all mother in different ways. You don't have to have children to mother. You may have a 4-footed friend, as we mentioned. And a lot of people here have been nurturing to me. How do we do that when we're feeling so much shame about what we've encountered? So I want to just sort of start off and let me go round robin, just like we did before, or Chris, you can add to this and just say, let's talk about that intersectionality of the pain, and so the shame, the fear, and the trauma, and all the things. So basically, it's a wide open forum. Robin, do you want to kick us off?
Okay.
Wide
Um,
open.
I was thinking about this a lot because last month our topic was fear, and I do some studies of spirituality and personality types, and we each have kind of a grounded center where we kind of operate from. Some of us are kind of more shame-based, others of us are more anxiety and fear-based, and others of us are more kind of anger-based. Not that we all don't have all those feelings, but we all tend to have a center of gravity from which we operate. And I'm definitely a shame-based person. I've done a lot of work with it over the years, and I'm much less so. But it's kind of my default go-to. And I was thinking about how this shows up with Parkinson's, and it's really kind of a double-edged thing. It's very funny to me when looking at it very objectively. When I got diagnosed, I was ashamed and didn't want anyone to know that I didn't specifically tell and control the way in which I told them. I felt shame talking to my friends at Rocksteady who were more progressed than I was, because I felt like I didn't have the right to complain because I wasn't, as progressed as they were. Now that I'm progressing more, I feel shame about the fact that I'm progressing more, and I don't even want to talk about that here in this forum. It's just really funny. It just kind of cuts all directions for me. And, Doug was talking about a problem with his foot. I'm having that too. My toes are starting to curl in all the time, pretty perpetually. Like I guess they're called hammer toes, but it's my dystonia going on in my feet, and it really hurts. And so there, I said a symptom progression. But I think that shame is, when Chris talked about identity, shame is sort of not feeling good about who you are. It's not about something that you've done. It's kind of more identity based, as I'm not okay in some way, and believing that I am my Parkinson's. I don't think intellectually that I understand that, but that's kind of like the felt experience inside. And I remember reading an article about neurodegenerative conditions, not just Parkinson's, but because they are so identity based, and we associate so much of our identity with our ability to think and our ability to articulate and express. And when that gets impacted, it really affects our identity. And so all the neurodegenerative conditions like Alzheimer's, MS, Huntington's, Parkinson's have much, much more of a shame-based orientation because it is identity that's being impacted. So those are my thoughts to kick us off.
And it's interesting too, the more that we cling to whatever the idea of what our identity is, the more we'll be dragged. It's like go or be dragged, right? You have to sort of roll with the changes, whether you have Parkinson's or not, right? What do you think, Kevin?
Well, I've gone with a lifelong battle of trying to deny and push shame out of my life, which doesn't mean it's not there. I mean, I've always told close friends that the hardest thing about Parkinson's is the disease of loss of relevance. And they ask me, what do you mean by that? And I say, well, every day something happens in my life where I can't do what I used to do. If I was in a working meeting, the ability to communicate and articulate a thought, or to be precise, or to debate. I feel like over time, my communication skills have really started to wane. And that to me is really a part of the thing that I'm somewhat ashamed of, which I'm not really admitting. But amongst friends like us, It's true, right? But this came to a head the other day. Just on Friday, I accompanied my mother to her first appointment at the the Memory and Aging Clinic at UCSF. And she got her first diagnosis of Alzheimer's. And it just sort of hit me really heavily, right? It's like I was lecturing my mom now on mothering and being, you know, a good parent, and not to let this really affect you, telling her that it's biologic and not a behavioral issue, that she's been forgetful. And so what's been very interesting for me is sort of the role reversal, to go from the patient now to the child taking care of their mother. And I know there are a number of us in here who have done similar things on this panel. But anyway, it's a long-winded answer to saying that I think we're on a journey of trying to push back shame. We have to accept it. We have to go forward. And to me, the greatest way of dealing with the issue is in fact being with fellow friends like you all, sharing stories and realizing that we have nothing really to be ashamed of.
And you touch on dignity too. The idea that we can do this with grace and dignity. Thank you.
Shame is the loss of ego. Shame and ego sort of are at conflict, right? And to have dignity, Heather, you got to sort of set aside ego.
And Doug wanted to add something.
Yeah, for me, I may be splitting hairs here, but I think it's important to differentiate shame, guilt, and embarrassment from one another. The only time I've really felt shame related to my Parkinson's is when I was on a dopamine agonist, and my behaviors, my compulsive behavior disorder had me doing things that I still feel shame for. I would feel embarrassment when I was out in public and shaking, but it wasn't the same as shame. And I would feel guilt in regard to the apathy I have in doing things with my children, but it wasn't ever shame. I don't think we need to feel shame because we have Parkinson's.
I love that distinction. Thank you so much for pointing that out to us. I know that Kat and Sri both wanted to add something. Kat, do you want to add something?
Sure. For me, the shame comes in because I'm a trained caregiver. That's what I've done. I'm a mom, I'm a nurse, I'm a midwife. I take care of other people. And it's been very difficult to think about having to ask others to care for me someday, or to ask for concessions. And so it's a real shift related to my ego. And I didn't think I was so tied to I didn't think I was so tied with my ego in my work. I really didn't. I was shocked. And leaving my work, I realized how wrapped up in it I was, and how much that whole shame piece came in. It's not that I feel ashamed for having Parkinson's. I feel ashamed that I'm no longer feeling as relevant working as a midwife, as a care provider, and that's not how it's supposed to be. It wasn't part of the plan. And so I wasn't supposed to retire before my kids were done with college. I wasn't supposed to go on disability. Those aren't things that has shame for me, you know, that I'm not working outside the home or earning income that way. So that's more where the shame has come from for me. It's around who am I? How am I relevant when I'm not taking care of other people? And how do I have grace in receiving care? How do I have grace saying, I hurt Robin, I can relate to that. I have pain. I'll say, oh no, I'm fine. You know, I'm over here twisted because my trunk's twisting, and people say, does it hurt? Oh no, I'm okay. I'm okay. You know, I'm holding my breath. I know, Kev, it's the hands, it's the trunk, so I'm trying to learn grace with it.
You
We're
just
all a work
reminded
in
me.
progress.
Sorry, you just reminded me of that meme where the guy's bleeding and he's like, I'm okay. I'm good. I'm okay. You know, that's kind of, you know, you're strong, the strong silent one, yeah. And maybe we don't have to be, right? Sri, did you want to add something too?
Yeah, but can you reframe the question? Because I think I forgot what I wanted to say.
We were, I thought you might like to add something, but to the previous conversation, but we were talking about how there's different types of shame and slash embarrassment. Doug had mentioned that, and that's when your hand kind of.
Thank you. Okay, so to what Robin said, I that really resonated with me in terms of the progression and all of that. It's like she read into my brain and was basically saying what I was thinking in a very cohesive way. So thank you for that, Robin. I'm your sister in those feelings, and shame is something I very much align with. To add to what Doug said, you shouldn't feel shame if you have Parkinson's. There's no need to feel shame. I understand that. But for me, the shame just happily came on its way, whether I wanted to or not, you know? So I felt shame because I got Parkinson's. And for me, it was like, great, I didn't do this right, you know, didn't make my parents happy with X, Y, and Z. And now I freaking have this disease. And, oh, I'm getting emotional. So for me, I think it was hard because when I got diagnosed, that was the time when I was finally coming into my own. I was like ready to settle down, ready to have kids. And then this diagnosis hit and it changed everything. So yeah, there's a lot of shame there that I couldn't do all the things that I wanted to do. Wow, I was not expecting to feel this way. Oh my God.
And you're wildly creative and you're a photographer. I know firsthand it's hard to be a photographer. I had to put my camera down. Photography and Parkinson's is very difficult. So I admire your tenacity.
Well, don't mention that. Can I feel shame because my lighting is the worst out of everybody?
Oh, you look great though. Look at
Oh,
you.
mine's awful, Sri. Are you kidding? Look how pink I am.
No, I'm talking about the
help.
light. Like it's like dark everywhere and everybody else is like, oh, we'll sit near a window. And I'm like, let's sit against the window so nobody can see me.
Well, nobody said you wanted to be a model and a photographer.
Thank you
Right.
for that. Thank you.
Oh.
Appreciate that.
And I know that we want, Christy had her hand up too. Christy, you want to add something?
Agree, everything that you just said, love it. I'm with you, agree with it.
And then I know that Brian wanted to add some things here. It's a shame.
Can't get my fingers to work. For some reason, I keep having a tremor when I hit the mouse. It's interesting when we started talking about this topic, because I didn't really think I had shame. You know, I grew up Catholic, we had guilt. And shame to me was, you know, when you did something really wrong and you're just kind of like, you know, and you're fearful of it. But I looked up the definition of it, and I love Robin's definition, where she said it's not feeling good about who or how you are. And I thought that made more sense. But as I looked at, have I felt shame with my disease? I think because right off the bat, we started off with Lily and I started off with such a sweet note on it. I think I've said this before, you know, we got out of the Mayo Clinic's doctor's office and the doctor had just said, you know, to Lily, you're going to be his care partner for the rest of it, or his caregiver for the rest of his life. Oh, love talking with Parkinson's. And she said, got out there and said, I'm not going to be your caregiver. And I'm like, what? And she said, I'm your care partner and we're in this together. And I think that made it easy. And then I always have this kind of gregarious, outgoing, fun sense. And so I told everybody at work right away, well, not right away, because I didn't say it for a few weeks at the end of the year. And there was rumors that I was dying. So I addressed it the first day of school, the next year. And then I just made jokes about it. I just said, well, you guys know I've always been a mover and a shaker. Now it just shows, and so I've always been funny about it. And it was easy to do that because Lily and I always laughed about everything. I mean, through her whole hospice, through her whole cancer care, through everything. And then I went through the depression. And then I got through that depression, started getting stronger, and a horrible thing happened that I've never talked about, but it started PTSD, or gave me PTSD, or however you describe that. And then I moved, and I was in a horrible car accident that I shouldn't have survived. I went right through a power pole and destroyed my truck, and they're still diagnosing me. It's been 1 year now, and they just diagnosed disc fracture and compression, but it's like my knees went bad, my shoulders went bad. They just found the second tear in my other rotator cuff. So I'm dealing with all this pain, and the depression's there, and bad things were happening with the depression, and I was having suicidal ideations. And I'm kind of like, what the bleep? That's not me. I'm this outgoing, fun, gregarious guy. And people started pulling away from me, my entire family. And one of them said, it's hard to hear you talk about suicide. And I just wanted to say, it's really hard to feel like that because it's not me. It's not my nature. I spent 17 years teaching my students about positivity in the face of adversity because I lost 3 students to suicide my first 3 years. The depression is part of Parkinson's. It's part of what the brain does. It's the non-movement part that we don't talk about enough. I got so desperate recently to fix it. I heard that one of the drugs that I was on was one that I was on when they were trying to do stuff with my ADHD, and it was Provigil. And when I did Provigil years ago, I noticed that it dampened my personality. And I asked the doctor if I could get off, and he said, no, because you're dealing with so much, and you've been in this bad state, so no, we can't take you off it. And it's like, I just don't want to feel this crappy anymore. So I took myself off it slowly, and other things happened. I couldn't sleep, didn't eat, and all that, but tried to manage it myself. And I'm sorry I'm going into this so long, but what it's become is the depression is my shame, and the depression is just like a tremor. It's a symptom. It's something of, but I feel like everybody sees me that way now. And that's why I love laughter yoga, because I don't have Lily here to laugh with, but I laugh every night now online with this international club, because that's my healing thing. That's what makes me feel great, is laughing. And then I go out and I go for a walk and I see all these beautiful people and everything is great until I can't walk because of the pain or the dystonia or the other crap. So I'd say that's really kind of what I finally found was my shame, is I don't know how to get past it. There's a stigma with it.
Yeah.
Well, and Brian brings up a really interesting and important point that I've noticed over the years, is that I'm the one with the disease, but I end up caretaking those around me who don't know how to deal with the diagnosis or the symptom that I happen to be presenting, or they want to avoid me, and they don't know what to say. And I ended up sending an email out to the whole family, sort of saying, I'm living a hassled life just like you. It's really a weird situation to be in.
Yeah, because when we get into these situations, of course, we get diagnosed. Everything else doesn't stop in life. Life doesn't say, oh, I'll just wait for you. I'll make an exception because you're special. We are a fraction of a pixel and a fraction of a pixel in the universe, where we know that we're very small. But to us, it feels very big. And there's a lot of people that are willing to shame us, especially the happiness brigade. Like, you're not being positive. Shame on you and you and you. And they need to remember that when they're on the way up, they're going to come down that ladder too. So we all, they just don't know what to do. Maybe I know I saw a couple of hands. I saw Christy. I saw Shri. Christy, I think your hand was up first.
So Robin, I'm with you. That's how I told my family. So I sent an email because I couldn't tell anyone face to face anymore that I had Parkinson's. I got sick of comforting everyone else around me. And so when it came time to tell the rest of my circle, I told everybody on Facebook, because I was just done. I was so over having to console everybody else. Like, what about me? I'm the one who has Parkinson's, for God's sakes.
Yep.
You just made like an announcement all at once on Facebook?
Yep.
A lot of people do that, huh?
I had to. It's the only way to preserve my sanity.
Yeah. And like Brian, you are working as a teacher, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So you have like a whole brigade.
The students and everyone else I work with, they're fine. They're different. I don't have to console them as much, but it's like the other people in my life.
Mhm.
So,
And I know Sri wanted to add something, and then we could ask Chris too.
Yeah, so similar to Christy, I came out on Facebook to everybody that was my Facebook friend, and I got a lot of support and encouragement and love. The thing I struggle with now, I don't know if it's shame or embarrassment or frustration, is that when I have symptoms, I have to explain to people again what Parkinson's is. You know, I send them helpful links. I send them links to the Davis-Phinney Foundation. I send them the links to the webinar, these webinars. I give them summaries, and the number of people who've read them are maybe like 2 out of
Yeah.
multiple dozens, including the people that are closest to me. So then when something happens, like I get dyskinetic and someone says, "Why is your head doing that? I feel dizzy looking at you." You know, or when somebody asks me, "How's your health?" And I want to say, "Why are you asking me about my health? My health is fine. I am not my Parkinson's, but at the same time, I am my Parkinson's." And for me, the embarrassment or the shame is when I have to like tell coworkers or colleagues, "Sorry, I couldn't get to this because of my Parkinson's." And I'm getting used to new symptoms as they hit me. So it's like having to train people on how to deal with the old symptoms while I'm learning about the new symptoms.
Yes, that is so huge. All these things are happening simultaneously. We have to be like the carer and the cared for. When I'm off and I'm trying to describe to the home healthcare person like where things are, that's maddening. And then they send a new person each time. So I'm like, oh, the scissors, oh, they're in the drawer to the, I don't know, just forget it, you know, after a while, you know. So I wanted to ask Kevin, and then I'd like to have Chris chime in as well. Kevin.
Yeah, Heather, you put in the chat room the issue of impulse control.
Mhm.
You know, we all have a disease of dopamine deficiency, and dopamine is the gratification hormone that we need and crave. I've had this conversation with my neurotherapist who said that it's not just dopamine agonism that can create this impulse behavior. Dopamine or cinnamon itself can do it. And I think that we're all sort of striving for something that we can't get. It's forever chasing that thing out there. So, yeah, I think it was said earlier, it was Doug who said that impulse control with agonists is the one thing he's shameful of. I can echo that. But I still am in this search for trying to understand more about why I need gratification. I don't know if others feel the same way.
We have to live now.
Yes.
Timeline goes tick, 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 tick. We're thinking, oh my God, I haven't done half my bucket list. I better hurry.
Yep.
Right? I want to do everything, feel everything. You know, now. What do you think? Anybody? I'm channeling Blue Velvet. Kat, did you want to add something?
Yeah, well, I wanted to touch on, I don't want to shift gears if we're not ready, though, if
Oh.
we're still wanting to talk about compulsive stuff.
I would love to add to this conversation. People are
I
mentioning
thought so.
AD&D in the chat, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of it. With the AD&D, we're all a little bit like Dory. You have a 6-second, focus here with all the shining lights and things. Some of us, not everybody. But does anybody feel shame from anything like gambling or hypersexuality or anything like that they're willing to discuss at all? Kevin and Sri both have your hands. Yeah, Kevin, you want to?
Well, I think it ruined my first marriage for sure. Impulse control. You engage in behaviors that you're not proud of. And I think many of us have felt that. I don't know how to go into any deeper without sort of laying out my soul here. But it's something that really is, the disease is not painful or shameful, but some of the behaviors that are offshoots from it, I think I do consider shameful. And finding a reason why is sort of now our lifelong search.
I have blown up a lot of relationships. I've acted impulsively, especially when I was drinking. Not good. Shri and Kat, you wanted to add to that either?
Yeah, so I don't know if this is compulsive behavior, but I've had struggles with money and spending. Maybe not at the level of somebody that's on like Mirapex or something like that, but definitely to the point where it's caused problems in my life. Not relationships, I've been lucky enough to hold on to most of my relationships, and my friends just kind of got used to stuff saying that's just me. And when I finally got diagnosed with ADHD, everything kind of clicked. Maybe it was Parkinson's, maybe it was ADHD, maybe it was Cinemet. I don't really know. I just know that it was there. The other day, I think, who is it? Brian might have been saying that Cinemet causes cravings as well, or could have been Kevin. I went and bought like pounds of sugar, Nerds, Sweet Tarts, Liderac chocolates, which are better than Godiva because Godiva is no longer available in the US. Pokey sticks. I would eat like a box every day. Boxes. And then I had a negative reaction to my Parkinson's medication just this past weekend, which was pretty scary. And it could have been because of the sugar in my body. It could have been because I wasn't eating enough protein. But I'm not going to go into details about that. Let's just say my mom was freaking out and thought she should call 911. And I'm like, relax. I know exactly what's happening. It's fine. You know, I had some glass that shattered against my face and all sorts of craziness happened. But I threw out the sugar right after, but immediately
We lost you, Sri.
Uh-oh. Sri, you froze.
It's a cliffhanger.
I was just gonna say, it's just like those,
my
end of
God.
age. Oh, there
Yeah.
you're back. Okay, thank goodness. You left us hanging, Sri.
what did I say?
You,
You were talking about just got rid of it and then you,
and then you,
Oh my God, I'm great. My storytelling is getting so much better. So I got rid of all the sugar, put it in the trash can, and I was very tempted to go back into the trash can and pull it all out because the craving was so strong. And in reading about sugar, sugar gives us a huge rush of dopamine, huge amounts. And because if you're dopamine deficient, you want it. Even if you have the right amount of dopamine, you still want it. And then when it comes to money, I'm looking at my like credit card bill. I'm like $60, $120 on sugar. I don't have that kind of money to spend, you know? So there's a lot of shame in terms of that, you know, not only the sugar,
shoot, cavities. I'm gonna fill in for her. My dad was a dentist. I know that word.
I thought she was going to say caffeine. My money's on caffeine, sugar.
It is, I'm on
caffeine.
cavities. I don't know.
That was great. That was great. Shri, you're freezing again, so we're let Kat chime in here.
We're filling, yeah, we were filling in. I know that I personally had troubles overeating when I was on the agonist. I gained like 40 pounds. And there's a huge amount of shame with that, you know. I'm short. And I was shorter and rounder, it seemed like I lost height. That wasn't good, eating that much. So that, it's since come back off, but it's hard. And the hypersexuality was okay for our marriage, but it was definitely noticeable. So
the first time they gave me Agonist, they did not warn me. Nobody said anything back in the day.
I was well warned, and my husband was at the appointment with me. And so we were both pretty cued in. It was a hard decision to have, though, because even though I had heard it didn't totally matter to me. It was a weird thing. And Kev, I'm sure you knew too.
Definitely, but you kind of justify it, right?
You do. And I know I'm a healthcare provider. I did that whole
That's
thing.
right. I can
Yeah, I know you and I can relate on that one.
we all think we can beat it, right? Or we all think we're a little different.
Yeah.
What I don't like is when people, even within our community, shame one another for that behavior when we know where it's coming from. These are not personality flaws per se. They can be, right, exaggerated by that, but they don't usually. How about this? How about instead of moralizing it, make it into a health issue? We say, have you checked your medication levels?
yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah.
In my darkest days of depression, I was craving sugar and eating so much sugar. And then I went in for an annual physical and my A1C was elevated, and I was not pre-diabetic, but my primary care doc warned me about it. And it was kind of an eye opener that my behavior is not good. I need to change the behavior.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Brian.
Yeah, and when I was on the dopamine agonist, I had probably two addictions. So one was the one that you hear about, but very few talk about, and that was the addiction to porn. And the second was this addiction to building things, because I had to stop teaching, and I found that I could build things, and so I built like 3 sheds on the yard. One so I could build stuff, and the shed so I could anyway. But the addiction to porn was being raised Catholic. I had all this guilt about it. It's like, what the hell am I doing looking at this stuff? I'm married to a wonderful woman. This is just wrong on every level.
So you
And I
built
felt
a shed
shame.
for that?
The porn shed. No, first I got a shed talk.
No, but that would have been really bad. But anyway, I ended up eventually telling my wife about it because I was just feeling so horrible and our relationship was struggling. And the moment I told her, she said, "Oh, I was just waiting for you. I knew something like that would happen. I was warned about it. I expected it." So I'm just like, "Oh God, you're amazing." And then I got off the dopamine agonist, and then I had stopped at the moment I told her, because once you tell her, you no longer feel the guilt; it no longer has power over you. And I found that's a great way to stop these addictive behaviors. But when they wanted to take me off the dopamine agonist and I was still building things, I'm like, no, you can't. That's my superpower, because I could lift things and carry things, and I built a 8x12 shed all by myself. Did the framing, everything. It's like, I'm a superhuman with this stuff. And that's exactly why we're taking you off.
I know where we're going when the Armageddon hits.
Yeah, totally.
Building sheds and stuff.
Yeah,
Well,
but
and
that's how
that's
you
the
lose
other
thumbs.
thing. It's not only the impulse control, but it can throw you into hypomania, kind of like a
Totally.
bipolar hypomanic episode.
Stop
And then
describing.
there's embarrassment around that. I did not have that happen, but my mother had that happen when they adjusted her meds, and it threw her into total hypomania for about 48 hours, and we had to stop her meds immediately and readjust. She's living in an assisted living facility, so it's like a college dorm. There's people around. It was embarrassing.
Wow. I love these transitions that you speak of too, because we're all going through, we're all headed that direction. Maybe. Chris, did you want to chime in on this one?
Yeah, I've just been it's been pretty moving to hear the variety of ways that identity and shame and plans and the sheer variety of things that have been shared is really moving. And it makes me think about the way people talk about Parkinson's affecting the whole person. And it makes me think about how that relates to the plans we might make and all the surprising little twists and turns that Parkinson's can throw at you relative to your plans, relative to things you hoped for, whether it's, relative to your diet or relative to your marriage, for example. I mean, these things can be large scale or small scale. And it's been really interesting to hear the variety of ways that Parkinson's has changed the plans for people on this call in those small and obviously much more significant ways too. And the way that intersects with shame you might feel about not succeeding in plans you have made. So that's the main thing I'm hearing, is that pattern.
Right. And going on and off the meds causes a whole nother wave. Titrating and deprescribing.
Yeah, it can happen again, right? I mean, you can finally feel like you've grabbed control of the plans again. And then, okay, now there's this new thing. My foot is acting differently than it was. And now I have to adjust plans again. And I can't do the things I'd already set. And so it's a continuing cycle. And I've been really moved by the way that you've all been expressing the way you've sort of powered through those things. It's been really admirable.
And Kat and Brian both had their hands up, so.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on a little bit around the shame of trying to do everything right, and yet the disease still progresses. that there's this sense of failure a little bit. And I think we all at moments have had, oh, that might happen to them, but that's not going to happen to me, right? And if I do everything right, these are my air quotes with my dystonic hands, air quote, if I do everything right, maybe my progression will be nice and slow, and yet here I'm progressing. So I must be doing it wrong. That's sometimes the cycle of what goes on in my brain. And, am I not exercising enough? Am I not taking my medicine on time? Am I eating too much protein in my meals? And yet I think we can get stuck in that cycle of constantly trying to do everything right because we want to stave off progression. And then we feel like failure and feel ashamed because, oh, here's another symptom, here's another pain, here's another this, another that. And I think I want people out there to hear that it is the nature of having Parkinson's to have progression. Having another symptom or having it change does not mean you're doing it wrong. It does not mean that you're a failure. It does not mean that you should feel shame. And I'm saying that partly to myself as I'm saying it out loud. It just means that it's part of the game. And we're all running as fast as we can, theoretically, philosophically, and sometimes physically, right? Or cycling, pedaling as fast as we can to stay ahead, and yet it still comes. So I just want you to hear that from somebody who gets it. And, who watched my dad die of Parkinson's and my uncle die of Parkinson's. And I have an aunt that was just diagnosed with PSP who's not doing great. We've got to remember that everybody, Parkinson's or no Parkinson's, is just out here doing the best they can. But life is progressive and degenerative, right? None of us. Don't I sound like a ray of sunshine today?
And fatal.
And fatal.
Kat, you just
come hear my inspirational talk at WPC.
Kat, you just described my thought process completely. Like it's not going to happen to me, that whatever, you just described it to a T. Yeah. But what has happened is that instead of thinking that I've done something wrong, it's not that I go there too much anymore. I get very defeatist. Like, what does it matter anyway?
The futility.
I'd probably be here anyway, even if I hadn't done all that exercise. I get really
I should
defeated.
go ahead and have the chocolate. It's
exactly.
Still You're speaking my language, Kat.
I know, sweetie. I got you.
Yeah. And when we're in a state of shame, we feel responsible, like for the disease and for how it affects other people too, which we're not. Brian, what did you want to add?
Well, one of the talks that I saw recently, might have been one of the David Phinney talks or something, but somebody recently addressed the things that we're doing, the addictive behaviors, porn, the sugar, all that we're chasing that dopamine high again. And that when you're on the dopamine agonist, you're kind of doing that on steroids, but you're chasing what you're missing. And that's what a lot of this is. And that's the stigma that to me helps remove the stigma of the act-in. And I think the best way, and this is kind of going with something either Chris or Kat was saying, but it's, to me, what empowers me through these strifes and struggles is the community. It's being able to talk about it. When I had that addiction to porn, I shared it with my support group. Lily and I led a support group in our community. And then people started coming forward and saying that. And then when I had the suicidal ideations, I shared that. Number one, it takes away the power from them. And number two, you find out you're not so alone and you're helping others. And I think that's the beauty of what we have here. But it's the community. I'm done looking at my family to understand or find grace from them because there's too much they don't know. And like Sri, I think where Christy was saying, sending them information and telling them, the brain is doing this or that, and it doesn't help. What matters is being with people who understand it. So you're not fighting that fight for people who don't understand and don't have the bandwidth to take into it. So that kind of is so significant and so underestimated.
I've been shifting from trying to be understood to trying to understand.
Yeah.
it's helped a little bit. And I'm not telling you to do that. I'm just saying.
No, that's exactly
tried so
right. That's
hard.
what I'm saying.
People understand, just give up, you gotta give up, yeah.
You can't make family understand, if it's
Yeah.
like somebody said in the chat room, if they don't have it, they don't have it, you got to let go and move on.
And I just want to tell a really quick story here because this is where it fits. My grandmother was disabled in a wheelchair and she lived with us for 11 years. My father, God bless him, used to lift his mother-in-law all 6 feet of her, and he wasn't quite 6 feet, I don't think, maybe 6. All 6 feet of her, and let her put a towel over, and he'd look away and he'd lift her gently into the tub, lift her back out every single day for 11 years. And I say this because she had a pill fall once. She was in a wheelchair and she called up to me, and I was a teenager. I was a jerk teenager. And didn't I take my time coming downstairs to get that pill? And how many times have I dropped something I can't pick up? I have to call for my daughter. Boy, do I know how that feels now. I didn't know any better. I didn't know that I was causing suffering. So just want to add that sometimes if you don't know, now you know. You know what I mean? So I know that Street, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I did, but I don't remember what I wanted to say. Other than, I think I'll just fill in the space by saying everyone had such wonderful things to say. And I think something that everyone said really resonated with me. And with Brian, my God, I'd love to be able to take that advice with family. I really would. But I find the need to still try and make them understand to some level what it is, because maybe not the deep details, but just at a basic level. But at the same time, no one's going to understand unless you've actually been in their shoes, unless you're in it. And the thing is, I actually have nobody near me that has Parkinson's that is a good friend of mine that I see on a regular basis. So for me, my friends and my family are really my support, other than, you guys and my virtual world. So without that support, without that understanding, it is tough. It is tough. I wish I could move to Colorado and be near the DPF folks, or to Portland where like the Brian Grant Foundation is, or other hubs of Parkinson's communities. But when you're in a community where it's just your family and your friends and no one else around you really gets what's going on, you keep trying to explain, and then you feel, shame that you have the disease, embarrassed that you have this condition, embarrassed that you're late for this, or not able to make it to that, or have to cancel attending your cousin's concert just an hour before. And it's frustrating, but it's life. It is what it is.
I really feel that. Thank you.
You always have the invitation to come visit us, and we're only a phone call away.
Thanks,
So
Kevin.
you have the community of us.
Thank you.
I want, with all this talk of shame is shameful to me, right? Because I also want to talk about how we cope with it. How do we get over it? And I think it's okay to say that we feel shamed at times. That's all right. It's part of it. It's part of the journey that we're on. But the key is to find out how we can shake it, right? Just like depression, just like shame, these are things that we can control, or we should try to control, I should say. I don't mean to demean it in there, but find joy, right? I mean, I'm finding new things that I can do now and treat it as a challenge. My latest obsession, I can tell you, is a hand exercise to try and help my dystonia. It sits right back here. It's a ukulele that my girlfriend gave. I'm actually getting dexterity back in my fingers.
You're taking ukulele lessons?
I'm doing it online, but 30 minutes every day, and the fingers are coming back,
Are they?
Oh
well,
my God.
not to the point that I would be performing a concert for you, Kat.
Oh,
But
man.
just the sound of getting a good chord, to me, is just beautiful right on there. And so it may take me like 30 seconds to get the fingers just right. But
As long as the music's in the same chord the whole time, we'll be okay.
there you go.
Music helps.
But finding something that gives you joy is a good thing in there. And we can all find that one hobby, that one thing. And the issue is, we've talked about impulse control. not letting it get too far ahead of you. Because I feel like I border on that in almost everything I try, is this obsession, right? But I think it's okay to give yourself that chocolate. It's okay to give yourself that power tool that you want to work with, provided you do it safely.
Kevin, I just threw away all my chocolates. I'm gonna have to try and switch to power tools. I gotta go with something safer for my teeth.
Were you gonna
Look-
say cavities or were you gonna say caffeine? Do you remember? Robin and I had bets
Were you
about
Cavities, cavities.
Ah,
Cavities,
cavities.
yes.
You
Ding,
got
ding.
it, Kat. You won.
You and the pony. It's an invisible
Your
pony.
pony. That'll fit in the Airstream super well. Thank
I
you.
want to pick up on something that Kevin said about how you cope with it. And Mark put in the chat, I've always been an obsessive compulsive perfectionist, but Parkinson's has taught me to accept less than perfection, silver lining. That's the flip side of this for me, is that I've gotten really good at accepting what's good enough. That, you know, sort of this heightened level of perfectionism, kind of obsessive compulsive type A stuff, I can't afford to be type A anymore. I have my little checklist of my things I got to do at work, you know, my list of stuff. And it's like, if it's good enough, let's just cross it off and move on. I think that the flip side of this is that PD has given me tremendous, it's weird. It's like I was more shame-based when I was super perfectionistic, and it's kind of coming at it from the other side. But I am way more accepting of myself now. I am way more relaxed with myself, and and then it allows me to be much more relaxed with other people.
Yeah, and they say the difference between misery and happiness depends on like what we do with our attention. Like, can we stay here now? I don't know about that. Kevin and Brian. I think Brian has been waiting to say something.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brian.
Then we'll do Kevin.
Oh, I just want to tap on what you said, Robin. My neurologist back at Stanford when I was living in California told me that Parkinson's is the curse for type A personality. She said, I see all of you even in exercise and rest and vacations, always are pushing. And she said, you guys will just benefit from slowing down and smelling the roses, right? Well, I know we're about to hit the hour, and there's one thing that I wanted to say, which is unrelated to shame. But I just wanted to thank Mel, because this is her last call with us. And Mel, I just wanted to say that when we had this conversation a couple of years ago on how we should turn a pilot young onset group of a Zoom into an ongoing panel, you said, yeah, that sounds like an interesting idea. Let's try it. And I can tell you, there's not a meeting I go to where someone in the audience doesn't say, I listen to your panel religiously. We get so much joy out of it. And no one has a better Parkinson's IQ than you do. And I think we all just owe you deep gratitude and thanks for this.
Well, thank you so much. I remember that conversation, Kevin, like it was yesterday, and it's 3 years later. It's crazy. And yeah, I love all of you, and I love all of you in the chat, and you're not getting rid of me. So you're still going to see me. Also.
Yay, good.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much,
Mel.
Kevin. That was lovely. Thank you.
Thank you, Kev. That was perfect.
Thank you, Kevin. That was important. Very important.
You're always part of the family, Mel.
Love you, Mel.
You are.
Thank you.